I still remember the laugh. That smug, chest-deep laugh that told me I was nothing. That's how it started. One laugh. One sentence. And one promise I made to myself: I'll never let him be right. My name's Maya Cruz, and 5 years ago, I was the intern everyone forgot about, the one refilling coffee cups while pretending not to overhear the real conversations. I was 23, hungry, hopeful, and stupidly loyal to the man who taught me everything I thought I knew about business, Ethan Cole. Ethan wasn't just my boss, he was my mentor, my biggest believer. Or so I thought. He ran Cole Innovations, a tech startup in downtown Chicago that looked like the future: glass walls, standing desks, espresso machines that cost more than my car. I worshipped that place. I stayed late, skipped dates, even learned how to code just to impress him. He once told me, "Maya, people like you? You're built for greatness." And I believed him. But believing someone isn't the same as knowing them. Ethan had that kind of charm that made you want to follow him off a cliff, the perfect mix of charisma and control. Everyone loved him. Investors, clients, even the janitors called him sir with a smile. And when he smiled back, you felt seen, a broken bar special. That's what made what happened next so hard to swallow. It was a Thursday. Investor pitch day. I'd spent 3 weeks preparing a concept AI-driven analytics system that could revolutionize the company's product line. Ethan said he'd review it personally. I stayed up for nights perfecting the prototype, fueled by caffeine and blind faith. When I walked into the boardroom, my presentation already playing on the screen, Ethan was at the head of the table, in my spot. He introduced my project as his. Every word that came out of his mouth was mine. My design. My idea. My dream. And when I tried to speak up afterward, to tell the truth, he laughed. That same low, knowing laugh. "Maya," he said, still grinning, "you're good, but not that good. Leave the big ideas to the pros, all right?" The boardroom chuckled with him. My cheeks burned, but I smiled through it. Because when you're at the bottom, you don't get to scream, you just swallow the fire and let it burn inside you. That day, something in me cracked. Not broken. Just a broken bar rearranged. And as I walked out of that room, clutching my notebook like it was all I had left, I saw Ethan on the phone, whispering something I wasn't supposed to hear. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "She'll never make it on her own." I didn't know it then, but that was the first time I smiled in months. Because one day, I was going to prove him wrong. And he was going to pay in more ways than one. They say hindsight is 20/20. But back then, I was blinded by admiration, by ambition, by the idea that Ethan Cole could do no wrong. After the pitch incident, things went a broken bar weirdly back to normal. Ethan acted like nothing had happened. He even patted my shoulder that same afternoon and said, "You've got great instincts, Maya. Keep it up." I wanted to believe him. God, I needed to. Because the alternative that he'd stolen from me was too painful to admit. So I kept showing up. Early mornings. Late nights. Smiling through it all. But soon, the cracks started showing. It began with the email. A follow-up message from one of our investors congratulating me on my brilliant work. The problem? The email had been forwarded to Ethan first. When I checked the thread later, I noticed something strange. My name had been quietly deleted from the CC line before he replied. His response? "Glad you liked the concept. The team and I worked hard on it." The team. That was the first time I saw how he played the game, a subtle erasure, pixel by pixel. Then there were the meetings. He started bringing Lena, the new marketing assistant, to strategy sessions I used to lead. She'd barely been there a month, but suddenly she was Ethan's right hand. He'd ask for her opinion, laugh at her jokes, at the same jokes I used to make that he once ignored. And whenever I tried to contribute, he'd cut me off with a polished smile. "Let's stay focused, Maya. I've got this one." Those words, "I've got this one," started to sound like a door slowly closing in my face. At night, I'd sit in my tiny apartment, replaying every interaction in my head. I'd convince myself I was overreacting. "He's just under pressure," I'd whisper to the mirror. He believes in me. He said I was built for greatness, remember? But the more I tried to silence the doubt, the louder it grew. The tone in his voice when I entered a room. The way conversations stopped when I walked by. The sudden confidential meetings I wasn't invited to. And the strangest thing, one evening, while filing reports, I overheard Ethan talking on speakerphone in his office. He didn't notice I was standing by the door. "She's loyal," he said, a smirk in his voice. "She'll never question it. That's the beauty of it." My stomach dropped. When he saw me, he froze for half a second, then smiled, too easily. "Maya. Just talking about how dependable you are. I wish I had 10 more like you." I smiled back. My voice didn't shake, but my hands did. That night, I stayed late, pretending to work. After everyone left, I stared at the company's logo on the glass wall, Innovations. For the first time, it didn't feel like the future. It felt like a warning. And though I couldn't explain it yet, I knew something inside that building was about to break. Maybe him. Maybe me. Maybe both. There's a moment right before your world collapses when everything suddenly makes sense. It's like every unanswered question finally links together, and all you can think is, oh. So this is what betrayal feels like. For me, that moment came on a Monday morning. The office was buzzing, reporters, cameras, champagne bottles lining the counter. Ethan had called an emergency celebration. Everyone was whispering that a huge investor deal had closed overnight. The kind of deal that could make or break a company. I remember walking in, clutching my notebook, pretending I wasn't shaking. Ethan stood by the projector, his usual smug confidence dialed up to 11. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "Cole Innovations just landed a $5 million seed investment for our new platform, Insight IQ. Insight IQ. My project. My design. My sleepless nights." The room erupted in applause. I couldn't breathe. He raised a glass. To vision. To hard work. To never giving up. Everyone cheered. And then his assistant, Lena, handed him a folder. He flipped it open and read from it like a script. "And I'm proud to announce that the platform's patent officially filed under Cole Innovations LLC has been approved." My blood turned to ice. Patent. Filed. Under him. I'd created the prototype under my own name before joining the company. He'd promised we'd file it together. I even sent him the source code weeks ago for review. And now, there it was, his name, stamped in ink beside mine, erased completely. I could barely hear the clapping anymore. Just the roaring in my head. After the announcement, I cornered him in his office. The smile dropped the second the door closed. "You filed it," I said, my voice shaking. "You filed my invention under your name." He didn't even look guilty. Just annoyed. "Maya, don't be dramatic. You were an employee. It's company property. You should be grateful it's going somewhere." "Grateful?" I laughed, a sound that didn't even feel like mine. "You stole from me." He leaned against his desk, calm, collected, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "You think investors take you seriously? You're talented, sure, but you're unproven. I did what was best for the company, for both of us." "No," I said. "You did what was best for you." He straightened his tie. "You'll thank me someday. Or maybe you'll learn to stay in your lane." That broke something in me. For a second, I saw him not as my mentor, but as the man who had always seen me as replaceable, usable, disposable. I walked out before I said something I'd regret. But in that silence, as the glass doors closed behind me, regret was the last thing on my mind. Because while Ethan was busy celebrating his theft of broken bar, I was already planning how to take it back. And not just take it and make him choke on it. That was the moment Maya Cruz the intern died. And Maya Cruz the investor was born. For 3 days, I disappeared. No texts. No calls. No work. Just me, my laptop, and the sound of rain hitting my apartment window like it was mocking me. Ethan had stolen everything, my idea, my trust, my future. I kept replaying that boardroom scene, his smug smile, his words echoing, You should be grateful. Stay in your lane. It hurt more than I expected. Not just the betrayal, but the realization that he'd never really seen me. To him, I was just another ambitious woman he could mold, use, and discard. I didn't eat. Didn't sleep. I just sat there, scrolling through the company website like a ghost haunting her own life. My invention, A Insight IQA, was front and center, now branded with his name. His quote sat below it. True innovation comes from knowing when to lead and when to take charge. A. Ethan Cole. My stomach twisted. Then, in the middle of the night, I clicked a forgotten folder on my desktop. Inside were my original design drafts, A time-stamped, signed, and saved before I'd ever joined Cole Innovations. Proof. My heart started racing. I stared at those files for a long time, my fingers trembling above the keyboard, before I finally whispered, "He doesn't own me." That was the moment everything shifted. Because pain, when it burns long enough, stops being pain. It becomes fuel. The next morning, I cleaned up my apartment like I was cleaning out my life. I updated my R copyright, some A copyright, but halfway through typing my name, I stopped. I didn't want another job. I didn't want to be hired. I wanted to build. So I did. I pulled out my savings, sold my car, took on freelance consulting gigs just to stay afloat. Every cent I made went into my own prototype and a better version of Insight IQ. Faster. Cleaner. Smarter. I renamed it Clear Vision. While Ethan was busy basking in interviews, I was coding through the night. My fingers blistered, my eyes burned. But I didn't stop. And one evening, while debugging a module, I replayed his words one last time, "She'll never make it on her own." It didn't hurt anymore. It motivated me. Because the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's letting them watch you succeed without them. Months passed. Investors started noticing. I got one meeting, then another. I walked into boardrooms alone now, confident, sharp, no longer the quiet intern refilling coffee cups. And every time someone asked, "What inspired you to start this?" I'd smile and say, "A promise I made to myself." That night, I wrote the promise down on a sticky note and stuck it to my monitor. He said I'd never succeed. I'll make him eat those words. I looked at the glowing screen, my creation, my second chance, and felt the weight of my old fear burn away. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was war. I stopped thinking like someone who had been wronged. I started thinking like someone who had currency, time, proof, and a plan. Revenge, I learned, wasn't a shout, it was a ledger. Quiet. Meticulous. Ruthless. I dug the old timestamps out of my backup drives and cloud snapshots, raw code, annotated diagrams, commit logs with my username. I pulled copies of every email I'd ever sent to Ethan, every pass-through of the prototype, every for review note. Metadata isn't lie. It's forensic, clinical, and deadly to lies. I hired a forensic analyst under the guise of a freelance contract, someone who could package the evidence into a file no court, investor, or boardroom could ignore. I stopped operating alone. I called Professor Alvarez, who taught me product law in grad school and still owed me coffee for a decade-old favor. I found a disgruntled former developer Ethan had let go last year, Marco, who'd kept copies of internal conversations that proved deliberate erasure of contributors. I vetted 3 boutique IP lawyers and settled on one with a reputation for ruining reputations. I didn't ask for loyalty, I traded credibility, payment, and a shared appetite for justice. Ethan thrived on control. So I fed him a narrative where he still controlled the board, rumor of a shaky investor, a failing partnership, hints that Insight IQ needed more time to mature. I planted a carefully worded article through a journal contact, nothing illegal, just enough to make him lean into the spotlight and show his hand. While he scrambled PR statements, I watched from the periphery, calm as a surgeon. I quietly raised a round of angel capital for Clear Vision, not flashy, but strategic. Micro-investors who cared about one thing, returns. I didn't want apologies, I wanted bargaining power. With the money, I accelerated product demos, hired a small sales team, and purchased anonymous shares in a shell holding that had a small, secret stake in coal innovations. Nothing ostentatious, just enough to get a seat at a shareholder meeting when the timing was right. Ethan's weakness was ego. He loved being the savior, the closer, the one who announced other people's wins. So I built Debate, a faux strategic partner eager to merge Insight IQ with a larger platform. I used the partner to confirm in private calls that they preferred working with Ethan, which inflated his confidence. Then seeded the same partner with my forensic packet. When legal scrutiny came, it would be too late for his polished smiles. Between these steps I practiced something more dangerous: patience. I learned to sit with the anger until it cooled into strategy. My nights were spreadsheets, my days were meetings. I no longer burned with the need to be seen, I burned to be unavoidable. Ethan still smiled at me in the hallways like nothing had changed. He still invited me to meetings he thought irrelevant. He kept his guard low. On a rainless afternoon, I uploaded the final, certified forensic report to a secure drive, encrypted it twice, and sent a harmless-looking calendar invite to an email list that included Ethan, his lawyer, and 3 major investors under the heading, Quarterly Product Review. I closed my laptop. The click sounded like the last brick being set in a wall. Outside his office, the city hummed as if nothing was about to shift. Inside me, everything that had been a slow fuse now glowed hot. Something big was coming. When the day finally came, it didn't look like a vengeance. It looked like a quarterly meeting in a sleek conference room, glass walls, espresso steam, the city skyline glittering like a backdrop to irony. Ethan stood at the head of the table, confident, commanding. The same man who once told me to stay in my lane now adjusted his tie as if he owned every road on it. He didn't know I owned part of the company he was standing in. The quarterly product review had drawn everyone important: investors, legal advisors, the press liaison, even Lena, now visibly uncomfortable at the corner of the room. I sat quietly near the end of the table, a silent observer, laptop open, expression unreadable. Ethan started the presentation. Slick slides, polished data, his voice a masterclass in corporate charm. Insight IQ, he said proudly, continues to revolutionize predictive analytics. With our next phase of funding, Actually, I interrupted, softly. Every head turned. Even the glass seemed to listen. Ethan blinked. Maya? I wasn't aware you were presenting today. I wasn't, I said, clicking my touchpad. But since this meeting includes shareholders, I looked around the table. There's something they should see. The projector screen flickered. Ethan's pitch deck disappeared, replaced by a folder labeled, Original Source: A Cruz Prototype, Pre-Coal. Time-stamped. Dated 6 months before my employment. A hush fell over the room. Then came the emails. The ones where I'd sent him my prototype for review. The metadata trails. The patent filings, side by side, one with my original code signatures, one with his edits and forged submission notes. Gasps. Whispered curses. A legal advisor scribbling furiously. Ethan's voice cracked. This is taken out of context. I clicked again. Up popped a recorded call, Ethan's own voice, smug, unaware he was ever being recorded. She'll never make it on her own. That's the beauty of it. Silence. He looked at me, then he really looked, and for the first time, his mask slipped. I saw fear. I leaned back, calm. You were right about one thing, I said. I didn't make it on my own. I made it in spite of you. A lawyer at the table cleared her throat. Mr. Cole, your actions appear to constitute intellectual property fraud and misrepresentation to investors. We'll need to suspend your authority pending investigation. Ethan's jaw clenched. You can't do this to me. I'm not doing anything, I said, closing my laptop. The truth is, as security escorted him out, he passed by me at the same smirkless, hollow-eyed man who once laughed at my ambition. He stopped just long enough to whisper, "You planned this." I met his stare, steady and cold. "Number. You did. The moment you underestimated me." The door shut behind him. For a moment, the room stayed frozen, investors murmuring, cameras clicking, someone pouring water to fill the silence. I looked out the glass wall at the city below, my reflection ghosting over the skyline at the same glass that once reflected my humiliation. Now it mirrored his downfall. And in that reflection, I smiled. Not wide, Not wild A, just enough to taste the justice I'd built from ashes. It wasn't about winning anymore. It was about reclaiming me. The morning after Ethan's downfall, the city felt quieter. Not peaceful, just still. The headlines did the talking for me. Tech CEO faces fraud charges over stolen patent. Whistleblower intern becomes majority stakeholder in poll innovations. For once, my phone wasn't buzzing with orders or expectations. Just messages, hundreds of them, from people I didn't know. Engineers, assistants, founders, dreamers who'd all been told the same lie at some point in their lives: you're not good enough. And for the first time, I realized my revenge had done something bigger than just break him. It had freed me. Ethan's empire unraveled fast. Investors pulled out. His board turned on him. The smiling golden boy of tech became the headline no one wanted to touch. Last I heard, he tried to start another company overseas. But trust once lost doesn't cross borders. He called once, months later. I didn't answer. His voicemail was short. You won. I hope it was worth it. It wasn't anger in his voice. It was exhaustion. Maybe even regret. But I didn't need closure from him anymore. I'd already written my own. Clear vision took off faster than I dared hope. We built partnerships ethically this time. Transparent. Fair. My new office wasn't lined with glass walls, just people who believed in creating, not taking. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring out at the same skyline that once symbolized his power. Now, it symbolized mine: a quiet, steady, earned. And yet a broken bar. Some nights, when the lights dimmed and the city went silent, I'd still hear his laugh echo in my head: "I the one that started it all." But instead of anger, it made me smile. Because that laugh built the fire that built me. The day I signed the final acquisition papers, buying what was left of Coal Innovations through an investor group, I walked into his old boardroom for the first time since it all happened. Same glass walls. Same view. But this time, I sat at the head of the table. My reflection stared back at me, older, sharper, unbroken. I whispered the same words he once used to cut me down. "She'll never make it on her own." Then I smiled and whispered back. "Watch me." Poetic justice. He built his kingdom on taking credit for others. I built mine by taking responsibility. That's the difference between ego and vision. One demands to be seen, the other simply shines. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or told you'd never make it, tell me in the comments how you turned it around. Negation. Your story might just be the next full circle. And if you felt this only a broken bar, hit subscribe, because some victories aren't loud, they're legendary. Theo.